In this video, we're going to talk about the Person-Centered Transition Plan Report. It's called Person-Centered because it's individually customized to each participant. This report is going to be participant-facing, so that we're going to make sure you have the right font and that it looks appropriate for you to actually print and give to a participant. It's been modeled and designed after the PCSP report, so if you're familiar with that report, you'll notice some similarities. This report has been written from the perspective of the participant, since it should be a reflection of the participant's plan to successfully transition. So that's a little bit about the transition plan report. Now, to run it, all you need to do is highlight the living CTA or a dated CTA. Since most of the data comes from the CTA, that's why we run it from that. And then you'll hover over or click on reports. And then this first one in the list, the Nifty Transition Plan Report, that's the one we're talking about. So if you just click here, you'll automatically get a PDF of the report. But if that's not the type of output that you're looking for, you can just go to this far left menu and select a different type. So I'll just select the PDF so we can easily read it. And it'll always open up a separate tab with the report inside. Okay. So just to break this down, I'm not going to go through every single field that's included, but we'll go over the basic makeup of the report. So the header, this includes some basic participant information like the name, date of birth, the phone, a preferred method of communication if it's entered, and then up here as of, this is either the CTA date or today's date based on whether you're on a dated CTA or the living CTA. So I ran it from the living CTA, so this is today's date, since the living CTA is supposed to be the most current, up-to-date living documentation. So they just use today's date, versus if you run it from a dated CTA, it'll print the actual CTA date that is included in the general node. So if I run this report, you can see that is the case. So I'm going to close this so I don't get confused. Anyway, so the next stuff that we have is just the transition navigator name and number so that you can easily contact them. And then we also include a couple preferences. So the one that's not pictured is what they would prefer to be called. So the nickname field, I must not have anything entered in the participant record for that, or else it would show. But then we also have the communication supports needs, and then what they want their life at home to be like after they transition. So those are like the participant preferences that are kind of important, and we want you to see right away. Then the next section is all the plan questions. So they're organized in the same way that the CTA is organized. So you'll recognize these same types of headers and section headings from the CTA, and it goes in the same order as the CTA goes. So once you get more familiar with how the CTA is laid out, if something is included in the transition plan report, it'll be listed in that same order as you are familiar with in the CTA. So the what is your plan questions that I'm talking about are, they're all throughout the assessment. For example, I'm just going to click on some of these barriers because there's a lot in there. They'll ask general questions about something like, do you have identification? So if you do, where is it? And then if you don't, or it's missing, do you need assistance obtaining it? And then if yes, what is your plan? So kind of that's the structure of a lot of these questions, is a build up, and then if you do need assistance, then what's your plan? And if you already have a plan, then that's fine, you can enter it. Or if you don't need a plan or you don't need help, then you can answer the questions in a way that doesn't require you to enter something then. So everything in the CTA should be answered based on, what makes sense for that participant. So you don't need to be answering things if they just really don't apply, and then that way your plan won't be super long, full of stuff that is all like, NA doesn't apply to me, NA doesn't apply. Instead just only answer the stuff that matters. So another good section is maybe this community living supports. There's all these leading questions like, do you know how to access transportation? If you would have said no, what's your plan? Do Do you need help managing dietary needs? If you do, what's your plan? And so these are all throughout the CTA, and that's what's included in this next section. And that's why I was saying how it's organized in that same order that the CTA comes in. And on this far left side, we have report text, which basically rewords the leading question into a way that instead of saying, do you need assistance with budgeting or bill paying, I will need assistance with budgeting or bill paying, because you probably said yes. And then the plan is on the right side. This is whatever you enter in that what is your plan field. So that's how this section is set up. Something else to note about it is these empty places. You're probably like, why are these printing? Normally we only print stuff if you've entered it. This report has a little bit a special thing where we wanted to make sure you didn't accidentally miss entering a plan or help catch mistakes for the leading questions. So if let's go to the household maintenance, and I'll explain why this is on the plan. So if we go here and find that phone question, do you have a phone and phone service? And then if you say no and you leave the plan question empty, then we're still going to print this on the report because we're assuming that you need access to a phone, and you need to put in what the plan is for the participant here. If it's actually fine, then maybe you should have actually marked yes because they do have access to a phone and it's okay. But in times where you answer basically in a way that seems like there should be a plan, we'll still include it on the report so that you know to go back and fix it and put something in. And also, if you would have said yes, that you have it, but you still enter a plan, we'll include that on the report as well, just because we don't want to leave out anything that's something that you wrote in a plan field, because we're assuming that's important. So that's how that stuff works. And then if you keep going, so this area is going to be completely built, the length of it based on what you enter. So if they have a lot of barriers to transitioning and have a lot of things they need a plan for, then this section will be super long. If they don't, then it'll be super short. So that's all dependent on the participant. And you can see it's not only what is your plan questions. There's a few exceptions, like we have the preferred pharmacy included here, and some other kind of little things that aren't maybe necessarily plan questions. But for the most part, you can kind of use that methodology when you're answering questions like, oh, is this going to be included on the transition plan report? Yes, if it says, what is your plan? Okay, then this next section is potential HCBS services. This is in the HCBS eligibility node. These are just these home and community-based services that you can check that the participant might be eligible for. Whatever you check here will be listed in like a bullet form on the report. Then the next section are the referrals. So all the referrals that are dispersed throughout the CTA are going to be included if you enter something. Any of those additional referrals that you can enter at the bottom of the CTA. So this multi-record data enter thing where if you click edit, you can add multiple records. Anything you enter into there, those will be included on the plan. And you can see in the app, we split it up by just general additional referrals and then HCBS program referrals. That's based on if you click yes or not to if it's a program referral. And so then based on that designation, we also split those up on the report. And then there's also referrals like sprinkled throughout the CTA. So that this mental health one came from this section. If I would have filled this one in, that would have been included. So all the referrals are summarized into a log together at the bottom with the program referrals split out. And then after that, there's the transition task list and transition services list. Those are the two bottom multi-record data grids at the bottom of the CTA. So we've got the transition task list where you can enter any tasks and if they've been completed or not. You can see that the completed ones are sorted at the bottom. And then the transition services list where you can enter any services that the participant is going to receive or is receiving, and then those all show up on the report as well. But something to note about this section is, first of all, it's ordered by service code, but if you see this T1017 Transition Navigator Services, this is being printed on the report, but you can see it's not in this list. That's just because the state said we could automatically put it on the report for every participant that's in the NIFTY portal, because we know that you're obviously going to be providing transition navigation services, and we figured it would be annoying for you guys to have to add it as a service in the CTA every time. So that's how that works. Just a little bit of a little different thing there. And then the very last page is always going to be, and it'll print on a separate page always, is the signature page. So this is, it's got the little authorization and consent blurb, and then a place for all the different signatures that you might need. And then this last page, you will need to get manually signed, and then you can scan just this last page into the system and add it as an attached file and attach it to the NIFTY record. So the state said you don't need to do the full thing, the full report. I mean, especially since it can be super long sometimes. You just need to do this last page. So that is the transition plan report.